Wants to throw it to Sewell. He caught it. He Sewell on a first down. Oh, yes. The big man dives down the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful. Fields looking, pressured, hit from behind, take it down. Aiden Hutchinson got him.
No respect.
So, we look like we're ready. This is day one.
No respect.
All right, Lions fans, we're doing something a little bit truly off the cuff tonight. And I just want to have a talk about the Lions, kind of the state of the Lions address, if you will call it that. That's what we're going to roll with tonight. So pretty informal. What I did is I've gone back into some of the videos, grabbed some comments. Look, there's some fans that are just, they're not happy. They're feeling a little SOL-ish, if you know what I mean. Same old Lions. And I don't know that we're there yet. I don't think that we're quite there yet personally. Matter of fact, I think we're a long way away from that. And I know some of you won't agree with that, and that's okay. I wholeheartedly appreciate, the way you feel as a fan, and I would never knock you for that. So tonight, it's an informal conversation. I'm going to open up the phone lines in about 10 or 15 minutes. And if you guys want to call in and talk about it, vent, whatever you got to say, it's okay. We're going to be here to listen and just talk about it, see if I have anything to help ease the pain. I don't know. I doubt it. But I figured it was time to do it. We're in the last quarter of the season. We're heading into the off season. But before we get there, the Lions are going to the playoffs. Whether you believe it or not, whether you think that the sky is falling, the world is falling, that the Lions are going to fall out of playoff contention, it's not going to happen. We're allowed to have a couple of bad games. The Bears game, Lions shouldn't have lost. They truly imploded, like I said yesterday in the video. There's just too many self-inflicted wounds in that game. Too many bad calls on defense and offense. Too many drops by the wide receivers. You could point a finger at just about anybody on the field yesterday, and there was an issue somewhere. The most glaring one is the one that I learned about today. And it's going to be the guy that everyone thinks that I hate, that I'm going to talk about first. But it kind of shocked me a little bit today from what I heard. And this I took from Dan Campbell's press conference. So let me get to my notes here. And I'll start there. So Hutchinson, he just looked absolutely deflated in the post-game press conference yesterday. And it almost looked like he was about to cry, like he was that upset. And I don't know if, he just got out of the shower, had red eyes or whatever, but he just looked emotional. All the guys did, honestly. But he did tell the reporters after the game that he basically called his own play on the field that AG didn't call. Now, there might be a little bit of miscommunication with the words here, but from what I understand and from what I gathered, from what Dan said after the fact, is that AG puts the call in and the guys know, that they can make their own adjustments, right, within that call. That call will have a package and a sub package, and they can make their own play out of it, so to speak, right? But the way that the reporters asked Dan and kind of what ensued after didn't seem like that was the case. It almost seemed like Hutchinson kind of went out rogue on his own. And it was the Fields touchdown for 11 yards that I spoke about yesterday too. And I had no idea this happened. But if you remember, Hutchinson was way down, surfing way down the right side of the line. And Fields had wide open to Hutchinson's edge and scored the touchdown. So that call that Hutchinson made for himself resulted in 7 points for the Bears. Dan Campbell confirmed it today in the press conference. And when he was asked about it, you could clearly see that and I know I've said this a few times lately, but he was kind of squirmish, like squirmy. You know what I mean? Like he felt uneasy about the question. But he did acknowledge, again, that the guys can call things based on AG's call, within the call. If I say call one more time, I swear. To me, it sounds like Hutch just did what he wanted to do. But I just don't see Hutch being that kind of person. But again, he was really upset about his offsides penalty too, and how that really changed the momentum of the game. So did he royally mess up, go against AG? Who knows? Is that the theme right now in the locker room? Well, that's why we're here tonight. We're going to talk about it. I mean, we can speculate all we want. We'll never know. We'll never know unless somebody spills the beans that leaves the team and says something down the line, or, it comes out later. We'll never know. So we can speculate all we want, but until we hear it from somebody inside Allen Park, let's just assume that everything's okay and these guys are just having a little bit of trouble on the field. John Kaminsky mentioned the discipline was key, that they lost their discipline throughout the game, and they've kind of lost their swagger and confidence throughout the season. Someone had mentioned today in another show that John Kaminsky made it sound like AG lost the locker room by what John Kaminsky had said during his post-game press conference. I did not see that at all. I did not hear that at all. I mean, everybody can watch the press conferences on YouTube. I didn't get that intuition from Kaminsky at all. It just, from what I gathered, they were a different team the first 6 weeks. They've been a totally different team the last 7 weeks or so, and they've kind of lost their swagger a little bit and need to get it back. He did say that the defense will own this one together, not separately, for their performances, whether together or independently. And that's what he's bringing to the locker room and the defense this week, that they need to own it together and move on. That they need to credit Hutch for being a great rusher, great teammate, and that he's taken this one hard because of the mistakes that he made throughout the game. And John Kaminsky also looked deflated. But that kind of ownership, right? That kind of mentality from your teammates within the locker room doesn't tell me that there's a bunch of issues. Still could be, but I don't see it. Decker, he said he had to focus on execution, and that was the main issue with the offense yesterday. That there's no need to panic. They're 9-4, can't have the negative plays. Very disappointing loss, but again, gave credit to the defense for making some big plays at times. But I see this, being a confidence issue here with these guys. They do look deflated, all of them. And maybe that's just because, they're an hour post the loss and it's still tough on their mind. But then again, us as fans, we're the same way. We are so invested into this team. We spend, whether it's time, or money, or time away from our families, whatever it is, whatever we're doing. A lot of us plan trips around this stuff or events, and it is deflating when you're walking into what should be a win and you're excited about it and it ends up being a loss. It's just a game. Some of us take it a little bit more serious than others. Some are casual fans, they show up, watch the game, win or loss, who cares? They go home. Other of us, others of, we talk about it. Kind of like what I do. I talk about it. So sometimes you wear your heart on your sleeve, and I wore mine on my sleeve a little bit last night. So let me jump into the chat right away here and see what everyone's popping about. Brent says, hey, Brent, Brent, I'm not going to say whose comments are whose tonight when I read them. I'm not going to do that as far as the ones that I took from the comment section. But there's some good ones in there, and we're going to talk about it. So Brent says, I guess on the bright side, we have Houston, CJ, GJ, and hopefully a O lineman back. So Brent, I just put out a video about an hour and a half ago. And according to Dan Campbell today, he stated Houston's pretty much not coming back. And if he does, it is very tail end of December, earliest. And January is a possibility. But I kind of broke it down and said this. we know when they're coming back when the 21-day window is open. They can't just show up, march into a game. They have to show up for practice, and they have to get cleared by all the doctors. They have to get cleared by all the coaches. Then they can suit up. But I think we've seen this tail throughout the season when, they're bringing guys up through the practice squad, or like Bruce Irvin, or now Alu or Alu, however you want to pronounce his name. It takes a couple of weeks to get back into game shape. And Houston won't be into game shape within a couple of weeks or 1 week of coming back to the team and being able to practice. They don't have full practice anymore. They have glorified walkthroughs, fast-paced walkthroughs. So they're not out there going 11 on 11 and 7 on 7 and getting at it. So I think they only have one more padded practice left for the whole season. I think Dan Campbell saved one, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. But if that tells you anything, it tells you that when they walk into this situation with Houston and CJ Gardner, it's really going to be dependent upon when that 21-day window opens. And it would have to open next Monday if Houston's going to get back by week 18, if he needed that full 21 days to get ready. The other question to that, and the other caveat, is who are we going to demote off the 53-man right now to bring Houston and CJ Gardner back? I don't think GJ is going to be a problem, because you got Khalil Dorsey, now Kendall Vildor, who's been elevated, which he's now back probably on the practice squad, and Chase Lucas. I mean, there's room. They'll be able to bring somebody up and somebody down. But Houston is a little bit tricky, because are you really going to take a shot at somebody that hasn't played all season and put him in week 18 or your first playoff game at home for the first time in 20 years, 30 years, whatever it's been now, 93, I think it was. So yeah, I don't know that they're going to do that. I wouldn't. He's a great player, but he hasn't been through the firefight the whole season. So wanted to talk a little bit about that tonight too. I guess we just did. So you got me to talk about it early, Brent. Appreciate it. Lauren McQuaig says, I'm not sure we are there either. Watched Detroit's breakdowns in the second half. Some players and coaches had a bad game. Hutch, Jacobs again. And why did we not punt on the 4th and 1 at our 34? Lauren, I think I spoke about that yesterday too. When we were on our own 34, tail end of the fourth quarter, I believe, I think there's about 6 minutes left or something. The Lions were up against the clock. They already wasted a timeout on the challenge. So there was no options other than to go for it. They didn't really have a choice. They had to, I think they were down 2 scores at that point too, if memory serves me right. Again, could be wrong. But the point that I'm trying to make here is they had to do something. They had to get a first down. My question is, why on earth do you call a delay counter to the weakest side of your offensive line that game in shotgun, 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage in the line to gain? That had to be the dumbest play I've ever seen run in my life. And that there's a lot of plays that I've seen, but that ranks right up there. You run the power, you run it up the middle. It's what's worked for us. Monty does great with it. Even Gibbs on an outside zone would have been a better call. Or, Mr. Consistent Sam Laporta over the middle like he's always done for 4 yards. So there's options. Again, boneheaded plays. Everyone's to blame. You could point the fingers at everybody. Absolutely everybody. Lauren McQuaig says Kaminsky had played a couple of good games. TD saving shoestring tackle on Hill in quarter 2 against the Saints. No one talks about. I'm glad you bring up Kaminsky, because he's honestly one of the best and smartest players we have on the team. And I think he gets overshadowed for not being just a, balls out, balls to the wall kind of edge rusher that, is going after the quarterback like an Aiden Hutchinson. But he really is super smart, and he puts himself in the right position. And when the guys are working well together, he's one of the best to do it. He really is. I know I did a video earlier in the season, preseason. Matter of fact, it was Brian Branch's hit on Beasley, where Kaminsky put himself in the right position and actually hit Beasley, right? Jammed him at the line to throw him off of his route. And when he was hit with a pass, it gave Brian Branch that extra half a second to get up there and I mean, the rest is history. Branch darn near knocked him out. David Petrock says O-line and D-line are key. I honestly don't think the defense did all that bad given the positions they were put in at times. I'm hoping that Ragnow returns. Otherwise, I don't think we can win Saturday. You know, there was a moment today in the press conference that I swear I heard Dan Campbell said that there is an opportunity for Ragnow to get back this Saturday, but he needed more time, like tomorrow, to figure that out, to see if it's even an option. Look, Glasgow didn't have a bad game, and he hasn't had a bad season at all. He's actually been one of the most consistent, one of the best offensive line players that we've had all season. Before that game, he gave up 3 pressures the entire season, 1 sack, no pressures while playing center, 125 snaps. Glasgow fumbled the snap, right? Dan Campbell also said that today in the news, in the press conference, that was on Glasgow, wasn't on Goff. And, you know, while I'm on that point, the other thing that he also mentioned is that he confirmed what I said yesterday. When Goff threw that first interception on the 4th down play, I think they were on the 45, they're 45. He confirmed it today. He said, I'm not going to punt from the 45. You know, what's the point? It's going to go into the end zone, net gain of 20 yards. What's the point? You trading 45s, you know? He actually appreciated what Goff did and gave him an opportunity, gave him a shot at trying to get a first down. And when it wasn't there, you throw the interception intentionally so that you then give yourself an opportunity to go make a defensive play. And guess what? They almost did. They popped the ball out. And if they would have recovered it, there was a penalty anyway, and it would have been coming back. But those are the plays that you're trying to depend on your team to make a play. And then the second interception, I mean, look, he's trying to push the ball. They're down. They got to do something. 6 drops yesterday. Amon-Ra had 3 drops. Laporta had some drops. Everybody had drops. You know, I don't know if the ball was just too cold and hard for him or what, but you can't put that, you can't hang it all on Goff. Now, is Goff walking out of this game unscathed, like he didn't do anything wrong? No, of course there was times that he probably could have hit somebody else down the line. You know, the thing that I think we all forget is this play that happens after the snap is less than 3 seconds. If it's a play that's going to go off the right way and you're not scrambling, you know, and you take the snap, you go back and you drop back and you go through your progressions, it's 3 seconds or less. I think we forget that. I mean, it's bang, bang, bang out. It's that quick. It just seems like it's longer when you're watching it on TV, but it's quick and it's super fast. I mean, it's nothing but shadows running past you. So I think that we got to give these guys a little bit more credit than what we are. I know that I'm over analytical at times, but it's just part of what I do. You know, I'm a fan, but I'm trying to take this on from a media perspective too, and give both sides, the analytical side, the statistical side, the fan side. I guess I'm playing with fire. I don't know. I'm trying to do it all. Jim Tree says Jerry Jacobs should not be in the league. He shouldn't be a starter. That's for sure. I'd like to see him as, you know, a solid number 4, but not a number 2. Jeffrey Jeremiah Jr. says, Will, thoughts on what could happen this Saturday against the Broncos? Well, I'm just going to reverberate or regurgitate what Dan Campbell said. Sean Payton's going to come in and try to embarrass this team. It's exactly what's going to happen if they don't get their head out of their ass. He's going to come in and embarrass. You know, it's the master teaching the grasshopper. I can't remember that term, but you know, Dan Campbell's the grasshopper here. Sean Payton taught him a lot, taught him everything. So if you don't think that Sean doesn't know exactly what Dan Campbell's doing, he does, because he taught it to him. He showed it to him. I mean, you got to remember that's where Dan Campbell learned everything. So that's what's going to try to, that's exactly what Sean Payton's going to try to do on Saturday. Do I think that Dan Campbell's up for the challenge? I do. Do I think that he makes some boneheaded decisions at times? I do. But I also look at it from the Moneyball perspective, that I think that Dan Campbell knows the metrics and the analytics better than anybody else with the team that he has. And he knows that, you know, 4th down situations, punting the ball makes no sense. You might as well go for it in certain situations. And our fan base has just not seen that. Matter of fact, the entire NFL really hasn't seen that. I mean, it was like ludicrous to go for a fourth down ever. You always punted the ball or kicked a field goal. Very rarely did anyone go for it on fourth down. The last 10 years or so, I think that's kind of changed a little bit. Historically, there is some amazing plays out there that have happened. But also, it's something that we're adjusting to. And I know that there was a college coach that I think that he's never punted his entire career, ever. There's a high school coach. I think that there's a story about that too. And there's some weight to why you shouldn't. There really is. Bruce Morton says, we need a defensive line. We have all backup players on the line except for Hutchinson. Get rid of all of them. They are garbage. And then you think you can win with this mess. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we need some extra players. Yeah. Are all of them true starters? Probably not. But some of the things that I'm going to get into tonight is talking about why we are where we are. Yeah, Gajan says the Decker had a bad game. Decker had a very bad game. He's had some very suspect games this entire season. And I'm just going to say it. Look, I said in the very beginning of the season, I expected Brad Holmes to draft some offensive linemen. I was nervous that Frank Ragnow was going to have a problem with his foot and be done. And I was also nervous that Vaitai was not going to be able to sustain the whole season. And that's what's happened. So, yeah, I think we should have beefed it up. I don't think that we should have given, all of our 5th round picks away to bring in a Broderick Martin and, as a project. But all right, let me move on with some of this conversational stuff. So I went through the press conference. I had a few questions or statements or whatever. We already talked about Dan Campbell confirmed the punt call. Dan Campbell also said that the JMO is improving. So he was asked about, why is JMO not getting a bigger role? And he keeps saying that JMO's improving every week. He's improving. And I don't get that. Like, what is he missing almost 2 seasons in to be an NFL pro wide receiver? What is he missing? Because if he is continuing to improve, something has to be terribly wrong. He should know the playbook by now. He's got ungodly speed. I know that he's had some issues with drops. But improving doesn't mean that you're getting him reps, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that you're actually giving him an opportunity to show you that I'm not improving anymore. I can do it. And you're not going to just do it in practice and think that it's okay to do it in a game. It doesn't work that way. So I don't know what he's still improving on. And if he's still improving, I'm going to say it both ways. It's either on Dan Campbell and the coaching staff to make him better right now, or if he's continuing to improve, he's never going to get there. Move on. And I know that's what some of you don't want to hear, but we're just having a casual conversation tonight. So you're either going to win with the guy or not, because if you're not going to be able to win with the guy, I guarantee you there is somebody in this league that would be more than happy to part with a 3rd round, 4th round pick, maybe 5th round pick for JMO. And that would be the dumbest move ever to not give him one more season. But then again, sometimes you got to cut bait. Take what you get. And maybe you can find a better 3rd round option that's going to not have to improve for 2 seasons. Old Jarhead. Love the name. Goff can't reliably hit JMO. Too fast for talk, fast for timing. Can't hit JMO deep either. I don't know if I can agree with that, either one of those statements there. I mean, Jared Goff has I think he's 2nd or 3rd for most completed passes over 20 yards this season. I think Laporta and St. Brown have 20 catches over 20 yards, something like that. So I don't know. If you're talking about deep bombs, that's not this offense. This offense is not designed around deep throws. It is an intermediate offense. That's what it is. It's not quite the run and shoot. It's not quite a West Coast offense. It's more of a balanced West Coast run and shoot. I mean, I don't even know what to call it, to be honest with you. It's a blended offense. I don't even know if they've given it a term. Maybe I should research that. But it's kind of like not quite dink and dunk. It's just a little bit further than dink and dunk. And it's more predicated on yak yards. And when they brought in JMO, they saw the vision of holy speed. The hitch pass is going to work great for this guy because he's going to have breakneck speed right out the bottle. But the hitch doesn't work. It hasn't worked for him all season because they're not putting him in motion. And yesterday we saw him put Gibbs in motion and run the hitch, and he dropped it. And that was all day long, wide open touchdown. He had a couple of moves to make, would have been a TD. So I just don't know if I can agree with that he can't hit him because I think he can. If Hendon gets to throw to JMO, they will connect. When we see it, we see it. Let me move on to that question. So that's the next statement. And by the way, I'm going to open up the phone lines. So, you guys can't see the phone number, can you? Give me 1 second. This one should be it. There you go. Phone number's on the bottom right of your screen. And I'm going to have it open. Feel free to call in. We're just going to have a casual conversation. This isn't, me against you. Just talk about whatever you want, just about the Detroit Lions, man. If you want to vent, I'll let you vent. Just try to keep the cussing and swearing to a minimum so I don't get booted off the platform by YouTube, please. Otherwise, I got to boot you out. So how important is one player? I think that's a question that everyone's trying to ask. How important is one player? And I had a conversation, I believe it was with Derek today, that when Stafford lost his center, that offense completely collapsed for the Rams, right? So how important is one player? You lose Ragnow. Glasgow's done a pretty good job, but it's not Ragnow. Ragnow is a stud in the run game. The dude is a genius at calling out all of the calls that he has to call, all the adjustments. The dude does a phenomenal job. One of the best to ever do it. He'll never get the recognition for it because he's in Detroit. For whatever reason, Detroit players just don't get the recognition they deserve. I mean, tell me why Laporta is not getting Pro Bowl votes right now. The first or second Pro Bowler in the game as a tight end. He should be. He's about ready to break the rookie tight end records. Not after yesterday's game now, and they may not be able to do it now. But so, how important is one player is the question. I think they're very important, but I don't think that if you single out Goff, all right, Amon-Ra dropped 3 balls yesterday. What are we going to say about him? Goff got him the ball. He dropped it 3 times. Laporta dropped the ball. He's been great all season, but he dropped the ball yesterday. Unacceptable, right? It's not Goff's fault. I mean, Dan Campbell confirmed at the podium today that he doesn't count any of those interceptions against Goff, even though they're on his stat sheet. Because that's how they put their quarterback in the game to make that play. That's what he was designed to do on that play. That was the call. So 0-0 right now, Green Bay versus New York in New York. 9 minutes left in the first. 4th and 8. No, I'm not going to do a whole play-by-play. I'll just do some updates. New York's got the ball. I'm sure they'll be punting it here in just a moment. So Hendon Hooker, is he the savior? Is he? And I'm going to tell you no. And I'm going to tell you no for a few reasons. That he's not the savior this season. He's not going to get in. He's not going to get in a game. And he's probably not going to be the savior next season either, because Goff is still under a fairly inexpensive contract. Now, what I'm going to tell you next, after I'm done talking about Hendon, you guys are probably going to fry me or you're going to love me. I don't know. But when it comes to Hendon, he did not play in a pro style of offense ever. He played in the weirdest offense ever in college. I don't even know how to describe it, but it is the furthest thing from an NFL offense. Guys just running all over the place. So for him to step in, he is going to have to learn a pro style of offense for a bit. He is a project. Now he has a cannon of an arm. Haven't seen him run after, his leg injury, but he had speed. The guy was going to be probably first ballot Heisman winner, or the Heisman winner, until he got hurt. Extremely good dude. Mature, leader, everything you want as an NFL quarterback. He just doesn't know that kind of offense yet. The thing that I do like about Hendon, though, is Mark Brunell has him really up on a pedestal that he cannot stump Hendon on any of the questions that he's asked him about the offense and the keys and the zones and everything that he's got to call. He knows it well. So I think that we have, I seen it. Hendon beat Bama in a shootout. Yeah. In a very awkward offense. Now you take that offense and you try to install it in the NFL, it ain't going to work. But yeah, he beat Bama. He was the only. So Peyton Manning never beat Bama when he was at Tennessee. Hendon's the only QB to beat Bama, I think. While playing for Tennessee. So I mean, that's a cool stat, right? But I mean, it doesn't transition. It doesn't transition to the NFL, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I'm all about Hendon Hooker. I mean, if you guys remember, if you've gone back to watch any of the draft podcasts that I did, I called Hendon. I called him to the Lions. I said he was the best quarterback in the draft. I said that Stroud, was the best one to take right now because he wasn't hurt. But if Hendon wasn't hurt, I said he was going to be a top 5 pick, and it would have been between him and Stroud. The fact that the Lions got him in the 3rd round is incredible. I think that Hendon is going to be a great quarterback. I just think it's going to take some time. What I'm going to say next, let me get to some of your questions, your comments. All right, so I just saw a comment in here. Hooker ran a pro style at Georgia Tech. How many games did he play at Georgia Tech? And I believe that was in 2019 for half a season or one season. And I think he was a running quarterback back then, and that's what they ran, was more of the RPO game. Yes, Will, I knew that. I think the issue is learning the defense. What do you think? Are you talking about? You must be talking about Hendon. I mean, that's a big part of it. He's got to learn the defense. He has to learn the offense too. And yeah, absolutely. Everyone does run better than Goff. Goff, I call him the giraffe when he runs. He's so clunky. When he runs, he doesn't have any business running. But Old Jarrett says everyone runs better than Goff. He's been there a full season. He needs time with ones and a real game. Yeah, he's been there the whole season, but do you realize he has not practiced? He was just brought up. He was not allowed to practice at all with the team while on NFI. It's like you're not even on the team. You can go to meetings and that's it. You can get treatment, things of that nature. Go to the games, stuff like that, but you can't practice. So he's literally just through his first passes in a practice with the team like 2 weeks ago. So he's got a bit to go. And I love Hendon. I'm telling you, I'm on Hendon's side. The issue is not Goff. And I don't want to get into this old Goff tit for tat, but that's okay. That's your guys' opinion. And you are allowed to have your opinion. And that's okay. Bruce Morton says, this whole mess is Brad Holmes' fault. He knew that we needed a DT and a DE, but he drafted Gibbs, which we did not need at the time, and wanted to run Hutchinson in the ground. I like where you're going with the DE and DT thing. But would you trade Gibbs and Laporta for anybody right now? That's the real question. Because if you didn't get Gibbs, you wouldn't get Laporta. Now, we probably didn't need to take Jack Campbell. And at that 18th pick, I mean, you still had Brissy, Mozzie Smith. Wasn't Tyree Wilson still available? There was a handful of what were top 5 defensive tackles and defensive ends still available. Mozzie Smith is who I wanted. That's the guy that I felt was going to help this team the most at the end of the first round. And he was still there at 26. So I'm not real sure why the Lions didn't decide, to grab a guy that played with, Hutchinson, put him right next to him. They love continuity, right? They love versatility and continuity. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Yeah, good, John. The RPO, it's not necessarily a pro style of offense. The run pass option is actually developed in college ball. It migrated to the NFL. All right. The next thing up, you guys are probably going to love this now. So let's talk about Jared Goff from the sense of contract and what he could potentially do for this team. I mean, he's led a top 5 offense for the last 2 seasons. And a lot of that has come at the hands of Jared Goff and his intelligence. Now, I get it. He's tall. He's kind of lanky. Some people say he throws a little bit of a wobbly ball. But then again, if you watch him in practice, if you watch the majority of his throws, I'd say 95% of them are pretty darn good. Spirals, heated. He has a top 4 arm as far as ball speed goes. It's been timed against 100 different NFL quarterbacks, including Mahomes and Josh Allen and Matt Stafford and Lamar Jackson. So he's only 4 miles different between the top arm, Josh Allen, and himself at 56 miles an hour, I think it is. 56 or 54. 56, I think. Incredibly intelligent guy. He has the athletic build of like a Tom Brady, right? Tom's a little more athletic. But if you look at what the Patriots did with Tom and his ability, not to run, he averaged 59 yards in rushing a season. Over 23 seasons, he averaged 59 yards in rushing a year. So you don't need to run as a quarterback. Now, he's not a Tom Brady. He's far from it. But if you build an offensive line around your quarterback, which every quarterback needs, and you get him some weapons, you're seeing what can happen. The problem that we've had, out of the last 4 or 5 weeks is our offensive line's falling apart. Injured. We've got too many injuries all over the place. It's been musical chairs for 3 seasons on the offensive line. And Vaitai was a big part of that. The right guard position is, we've probably put 6-7 guys in there now in 2 seasons. That doesn't help a quarterback when you constantly have a hole on your offensive line. It's like driving down the road with 3 tires instead of 4. And then you put a spare on it that's half the size and you're just kind of limping down the road, right? It's not what really happens, but you get the idea that the picture that I'm trying to paint. That's what Goff's been dealing with ever since he's been in Detroit. Then we didn't have a running game until last season. And then this season, it got even better. So we've got the weapons around him. He's going to be there next year as our signal caller. I don't see any of that changing unless he gets hurt. Or let's talk football business for just a second. I'm going to move back to your chats in just a second, okay? Let's talk football business. Brad Holmes is a pretty savvy guy when it comes to football business. I know a lot of people are calling him into question right now. And some decisions he didn't make at the trade deadline. And I agree. Something should have happened. But would you be upset if Brad decided to move on from Goff in the offseason to gain draft capital? Because I'll tell you right now, there is probably no less than 5 teams that would take Goff right now. Patriots probably being one of them. Falcons being another. The Bucks probably would take him too. Fits perfect in the Bucks offense and the Patriots offense. Not so sure about the Falcons. Those are two landing spots that are quarterback needy teams that Brad could probably pull in a little bit of a handsome ransom for. A quarterback that has been delivering a top 5 offense that just needs a little bit of an offensive line and a couple of weapons. There's a lot of teams that'll take him. So if Brad Holmes were to bring in a second and a third round pick for Jared Goff, would that make you satisfied? Would you move on of Jared Goff for a second and a third round pick and give up your top 5 offense and bring in a rookie? Because it would be a Hendon Hooker rookie season if he was the one to get the job. So think about that for a minute. And while you think about that, I'm going to read some of your chats. Okay, let me go back. Gerald says, I don't know if this has been considered about Hutch, but he seems a bit slower lately. I don't know if it's because of him beefing up or hurt after his interception and blindsided tackle him. After his, the blindside tackle. Yeah, he did take a good shot to his thigh. That was like 8 weeks ago, though. I'm sure he's fine. He did give up on some plays yesterday. Everyone saw it. I'm not real sure why. I do know this. I mean, he needs help, but he also needs to learn his box. And I said it in the video, I think yesterday. He has to stay in his box and defend his edge and control his gap. And stop getting sucked in everywhere, getting past the quarterback. If he would just do that, you could probably erase 100 points off the board over the last 2 seasons. But I like where you're going, Gerald. David Petrock says Bruce Morton. Correct. We should have kept Swift and Hutchinson and worked on this defense. But Holmes tried to be cute and get this Bama shiny car plus some banged up cornerback in Mosley and Mr. Culture DTs. So look, I hear it. I'm going to leave that up there for just a second. Look, Swift didn't want to play in Detroit. Isn't it incredible that he was always injured, never finished runs, got hurt in almost every game, and then he would come back to play the next week for 10 or 15 snaps, and then get hurt again, but then come back the next week and play for 10 or 15 snaps, and then get hurt again. Then he was out for a couple of games, and he comes back for 10 or 15 snaps, and he's hurt again. It was always something. But he's been getting the crap kicked out of him in Philly, and he doesn't come out the game. He got leveled yesterday. Didn't come out the game. Was it yesterday or the game before? So Swift didn't want to be here. Hawkinson didn't want to be here. He wanted to play for a winner, and that's exactly what he said at his opening press conference when he left Detroit. I'm finally going to feel like, what do you say? I'm finally going to see what it is to finally win games, or I'm finally going to be part of a team that wins games or something like that. And I'm sorry, would you have paid Hawkinson what he just got paid? Roster roulette. That's how we do it. Roster roulette. You cycle players in every 3-4 years so you don't have to pay that big contract. If they're good enough to pay, you pay them one time. But you're going to have to cycle more of that same player through the draft, you know, to keep that position relevant, because you're not going to be able to, you know, pay for it twice. There's not enough money to go around. And Laporta is better than Hawkinson right now. So I think that they made a great move. And Gibbs, I mean, he's better than Swift. He missed a couple of games this season, right? You put him in at just his average. And if you put Monty in his average, without missing any games this season, they are top 5 running backs in the league. And I think Monty and Gibbs would be like number 2 and number 3, something like that. I haven't done the math in a couple weeks. Old Jarhead says both lines are failing, secondary failing. They are. You know, Jerry Jacobs, man, That guy has more pass interference calls than he does passes defense this season. And he's good for at least 1.5 a game. And they're bad penalties too. Getting burned, constantly. And time it. My question is this. If you know the guys can't stick in man coverage because they've clearly shown you all season, they can't, even last season, they can't stick in man coverage, why are we not playing zone? You can have one guy go man-to-man, right? If Cam can do it, let Cam do it. Let him go man-to-man on the best wide receiver in the game. Put a single high safety over top of Cam. Have his rover cover his back. We saw that last season, and Joseph was getting interception after interception because that's how they were playing. Joseph was baiting. But if Jacobs can't cover, put him in zone. Have him play off man at least. Keep it in front of him. Don't let him get behind you. But he's up there trying to jam receivers like Olave or Watson that just blaze right past him. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. So, yeah, definitely failing. All right, so back to my question. Let's see if you guys put any answers in here. Would you move on from Jared Goff for a 2nd and a 3rd round pick next season? I didn't see any answers in here. All right. Ken Button says yes. The team cannot overcome Dan Campbell playing Madden video game management. Ken, since you put that in here, that was one of my comments that I was going to use tonight. So you wrote it again. I think that Dan's just doing things a little bit different. I think that he's kind of, developing this new way of Moneyball in football, and he's just doing things a little bit different. So Bruce Morton, you would not move on Goff for a 2nd and a 3rd. Okay. All right. So, I just want to know. I want to know what you guys really think, because if you think that Hendon Hooker's the answer, what is it going to take to get Goff out of Detroit? If he's that bad, a top 5 quarterback in the league as far as the stats are considered. And I don't, someone, if you guys want to do the math for me real quick, go back to like what, week 9 last season? How many games have the Lions won? What are we, like 20-5, 20-6, something like that? It's got to be close to somewhere in there. That's a pretty good football team. What are we really upset about? We're playing the best football we've ever played, albeit they've been some bad football games. We are winning. We're never losing more than 1 game in a row. That I can't even tell you the last time that's happened. We're winning 2, 3, 4 at a time. Last year, I think we won 2 times in a row? Like we won 3, lost 1, won 3, or something like that. Yeah, Ken, I think it's something like that. 22-6. It's something very close to that. 22-6. So more than a season's worth of wins and losses, and you're 22-6. Dan Campbell. So I'm going to be doing a special video on Dan. He's going to be at 500 probably by week 17. And I'm going to do a special video congratulating him on it, because I think that he, outside of Caldwell, he will be the first coach that we've had to have a 500 record. Now, I know we want to be better than that, and we will be. But I also think he's the quickest to do it outside of Caldwell. I think Caldwell had a little bit better record in the beginning since Wayne Fonts. Wayne Fonts. It's how long we've gone. And I don't count any of the fill-in coaches. None of the guys that, took over for a coach that got fired. They don't count. If you don't play a whole season, if you don't coach, it doesn't count. So we're moving in the right direction. Right. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So we're moving in the right direction in more ways than, one. We've made significant changes. Amateur Bros says, maybe for a first and a third. See, that's kind of what I'm thinking too, is a first and a third. Now, I'm not saying I want to trade Goff. I want to make that clear. But what I am saying is there's been a lot of people that want to get rid of Goff. And they think that he's the problem. And if he is, then tell me what it's going to take to move on from Goff. And I see if you've given it any thought, because I just don't think it's ever going to happen. I don't think we need to do it. So the next point I want to take, remember the phone line's open. If you guys want to call in and talk about this stuff and make your statement, don't be nervous about it. It's just like, talking to your brother or your sister or whatever. We're just having a conversation. The next point I wanted to make is it takes time to rebuild a team. And people forget so quickly that this wasn't a rebuild at all. A rebuild is when you have, you've got a retooling, right? And you've got to rebuild. And then you got what the Lions did. And they're one of the only teams to do what they've done in many, many seasons. I think probably more than 15, 20 seasons. I don't even remember who the last team it was that gutted their entire infrastructure. Gutted it. And some people say you gutted it to the studs. I say they gutted it to the mud. They went to the dirt and worked their way up. Since 2020, the roster that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes inherited from 2020, 85% of that team is gone. You have Taylor Decker, Tracy Walker, Frank Ragnow, Jack Fox. I think there's six players that remain from the 2020 roster that are on our current roster. 6 out of 69. Well, back then I think it was 69 back then too. Yeah, COVID rules kind of changed things. So I guess what I'm trying to say is what they've done inside of 2.5 seasons is incredible. They have liquidated more than 85% of the inherited roster. They've hit on every draft with some good quality starters. They've had a few players that didn't turn out so well, some unlucky breaks and injuries. I hope that Brad Holmes never drafts an injured player ever again. I hope he never brings in an injured player in the offseason ever again. I hope that he learned his lesson. It seems like all general managers make that decision at least once in their life, and then they realize, yeah, that's probably not smart. But to Brad Holmes' credit, he had no money. And since I'm on that subject, let me pop over to something I pulled up. In 2020, oh, shoot, that's the wrong one. Here we go. Let me wind it back. In 2023, the Lions have $25 million in dead cap right now, and a lot of this is an injured reserve money is at $23 million. But out of $196 million in total cap allocations, it's pretty heavy on the offense, right? We're about 60-40 offense to defense as far as where the cap resides. We have $3.2 million left in cap space. Actually, let me say this all another way. Maximum salary cap is $227. Active contracts, $171. Injured reserve, $24. Dead cap, $25. Total cap, $223. Estimated cap space, $3.2 million. In 2024, this team is going to enter the season with less than $1 million in dead cap. Coming from 2020, they inherited a roster with $65 million in dead cap. They had no money. And they didn't have any money. This was the first season that they really had any sort of money to work with. And what did we have? Like 30 million? And Brad got who he got, depleted it down to about 7 million, renegotiated Aquara and Vitai's contracts, opening up another $12.5 million, and replenished exactly what he just spent. Got us back to about $25 million. So he spent close to $50 million this year when he only opened up the season with about 30. In next year, we're going to have $1 million in dead cap and about $75 million in available cap space and a full roster of draft picks. So you want to talk about pushing the needle hard and fast and turning this team around, gutting the entire infrastructure down to the mud in 2021, eliminating 85% of your roster, hitting on more than 60% of your draft picks that are starters year one. I think they're doing a pretty good job. And this is exactly why I know there's a couple of people that don't agree with this. I'm sure there's a couple more than that, but I always say we're a half a season ahead of ourselves because we needed that extra draft. Brad Holmes needed that fourth draft. He needed 4 seasons, 4 drafts, 4 off seasons to get the guys that he wanted. 4 drafts equals a full boat of starters, offense and defense. It doesn't mean he'll pick them in that direction, right? Or in that fashion. But he's finally going to have the money this offseason to say, hey, those fans are crying about a DT, a cornerback, and a DE. Who do we want? Who's available? Now, do I want him to go spend $26 million on one? Absolutely not. I'd rather see him get 2 guys at $13, $14 million apiece that can still get the production of that one for $26 million. But if one goes down, we still have another one there in a reserve tank, so to speak. So get a DE and a DT. You spend 13, 14, 15 million apiece a season, right? And you got some good quality guys that can help get this team to the next level. And you still draft somebody that might be that, that next, Allen or somebody. You know what I'm saying? All right, let me get to some of your chats here. All right. Ken Button says, man, if we end up 9-8 again, we are not moving in the right direction. If we end up 9-8 again, I think parts of Detroit are going to, and I'm not saying do this, I think that it's going to burn. I think people are going to be that upset. It's going to be like my Michigan State Spartans out there burning couches like fools. Ask too much, you get stuck with them. Then what? Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I don't think he's on the trading block. But then again, like I started that off with, Brad makes good business decisions. There is a lot of teams that would love to have Jared Goff. The guy is available. He doesn't, I mean, he's gritty, right? And that word's a little overplayed now, but he's gritty and he's available. He shows up, he plays hard, he takes his hits, he gets right up. I know he looks skinny, but man, that guy's tough. He's not Stafford tough, but he's tough. All right, John says Denver's rush defense is horrible. We got to get back to the run game. We're going to have to because their passing defense is insane. It's really good. And I'm betting that Sean Payton will find a way to have 0 deficiencies coming into this game. All right, I got a call coming in. I'll be on hold for just a minute, so you'll hear my mouth moving, but you won't hear me. Well, I don't know what happened there. I couldn't really make out what the individual was saying. So let me move on to some more of your chat questions here. So Lions need to find the punch in the mouth play they had at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. Gerald, I agree with you, man. I made this statement the other day, and I don't want it to be taken the wrong way. I don't want to see the Lions sacrifice this Walter Payton Man of the Year type of mentality and culture. By all means, I want them all to be Walter Payton Man of the Year. But I don't want them to get kind of stuck on this, all of our guys got to be perfect and, fit this culture. And you sacrifice bringing in that smash mouth football mentality that, is afraid to kind of go over the line a little bit. We almost needed an Ndamukong Suh right on this team to get these guys sparked up and playing hot. And that's what CJ Gardner did. That's what he was so great at doing. And it's different when he's on the sideline. I don't think he's able to be that same individual. So without him, we've seen a definite difference on this team, even though it was only for a couple of weeks. But man, the offseason was incredible. The training camp was incredible. Everything that was flying out of Allen Park, I mean, all of the news medias, everything was great. And I was there. I was there for like 5 practices or something like that. I seen it. We need someone like this. I don't want to see us always sacrificing goody two shoes, that are going to listen and buy in, and somebody that, you can supposedly only coach and train that, will listen to you, and sacrifice this, smash mouth type of play that we need. So right now the, Green Bay Packers were up 7-0. Giants just had a nice run by Jones for a first down and then a nice handoff for about 40. They're about to score. Let's go Giants. We need them to win. And I hate even saying that because the Lions had no business losing yesterday. Old Jarhead says this half this roster still needs replacing. We've got 39 guys signed. So I'm going to go back to that. We have 39 guys signed for next year. And that was the other thing that I needed to emphasize. That is the most signed players we have had in a very long time to start the season. That means that we only need to sign 30 more. So let's do a little math game here. Let's call it 70 million on the books is what we have. And we need to sign 30 guys to get to 69. That's your 16 on your practice squad, 53 on your 53 man. And if you look at the roster now and at the depth chart now, about 25 to 30 of those guys average about $1 million a year in salary. So if you bring in 7 from the draft, if you don't make any moves and you bring in 7 from the draft, then we need to sign 23 more in free agency, UDFAs, so on and so forth, right? So that's 23 or 20 million that you could probably spend on your fill-in guys, UDFAs and whatnot. 20 million that you're going to spend on your rookie draft class, rounded a little high. And you've got 30 million left over. You will be able to buy 3 guys with that 30 million that can make 15 to 20 million dollars a piece every season for 3-4 seasons. You don't have to re-sign Jared Goff next year. It would be smart to, so that you can really kick the can on his contract and open up another 10, 15 million for the next couple of seasons. You don't have to re-sign Jared or St. Brown next year, but I don't know if I'd be willing to pay him 26 million that he supposedly has a market value of right now. That's way too much. I know that we love him. Solid wide receiver. Top 5 in the league, but 26 million for somebody that's not a 50-50 ball, 6'4", 230 pounds, runs a 4.4. I don't know. I don't see it, but I'm not going to talk about St. Brown. Love the dude. We need more of him. Flat out. We need more of him, more of his energy, more of his work ethic. Somebody that hits the jugs machine every day, 202 balls a day. That's where JMO needs to be, right next to him. Set up the jugs right next to him. Hey, Ken. Ken says, have a good night. Good luck. I appreciate it, Ken. You too, man. Old Jarhead says, I had surgery today. Pain meds. Kick it in later, gents. All right, buddy. We'll see you. Thanks, man. All right. So let me back up here. Montez Sweat worth $100 million. Man. Did he get a contract from the Bears, right? They signed him to a big deal right away, didn't they? And no. I mean, that's probably the biggest reason why Brad didn't make a move, because these guys would have wanted a contract. Yeah, 4 years, $98 million. $63 million basically guaranteed. So when you break it all down, and I haven't looked at his contract, but when you break it all down, you know, he might count what, 15 million this year, 15 million next year. He probably got a giant signing bonus. Oh, no, he didn't. Only 20 million. So they're basically spreading out. I mean, they got to spread it all out over 4 years, but yeah, no way. He's just, I mean, what did he do against the Lions on Sunday? I guess that's the biggest question. I guess, I mean, I seen him make a few plays, but not $25 million worth. And I think that's the biggest thing that you know, people are not seeing right now, is that we needed to build 4 seasons through the draft so that we had 4 years of cheaper contracts. Your first rounder, if it's not a top 10, it's not going to cost you, you know, more than $8 million a year, roughly. So you get 4 years worth of first rounders and second rounders, and you're starting to build your, you know, your roster. Unfortunately, Levi Onwuzurike hasn't worked out. Josh Paschal hasn't done squat. I wouldn't have traded the multiple 5th round picks for Broderick Martin. Wouldn't have done it. Not me. I would have picked somebody else. Hopefully he proves us wrong. He played a pretty good game on Sunday. Got some pretty good pressure next to Bugs. Ken Button says, shouldn't we expect Taylor, Jonah, Frank, and Big V will miss several games next year as they have the last 3 years? So Big V is done. He won't be back next year. You know, this was his last year on his contract. Panay Sewell, I think he's up for a contract in 2025. And I think Frank is Jonah. Jonah's the only one that's up for contract next year, I believe. And I could look all this up in a second if you want. But Taylor and Frank should be signed for at least 2 more seasons, I believe. Big V's gone, Jonah next year, and Panay the year after that. But if you're hitting at one thing, it's that we do need to start thinking about offensive line. I would not pay Jonah what he's going to command, which is probably 15 plus million or more. Probably more. I would rather draft another offensive, you know, left guard or 2. Really 2. We need 2. I doubt Graham Glasgow comes back, but, you know, then again, maybe he will. I want him to come back. Clearly the best off-season signing Brad Holmes has ever had. Yeah, so Gajan, if Decker's done next year, then his contract year will be 2025. And Decker's suspect, man. He's had some bad games this year. I think it's time to invest into a solid rookie, you know, left tackle, first rounder. And they'll probably have to do that in 2025. Or Brad Holmes is going to have to sell the farm next year. You know, again, that's where that, if you trade Jared Goff, you guys can get your extra first round pick. But unless you get a top 10 pick, you're not going to get a top, you know, offensive lineman at left tackle. CJGJ, yes, I do. I think that there's an opportunity here. So the question is, do you think that we resign CJGJ? I think that there's an opportunity. I think that he likes Detroit, and I think that Detroit loves him and the energy that he brings. So I think that there is an opportunity that he got hurt, and he's not going to go to any team for a big contract. Nobody's going to pay him a big contract. Not after a torn pec. And I think that the Lions might be able to get him back for another $5.5-6 million again. We'll see. Shannon Graham says, just don't pay the sitting duck and we will have the money, period. Yeah, so that's the one thing about these contracts of quarterbacks too, that if you're talking about Goff, when you look at the escalation of the salary cap, so next year it's supposed to go up about $25 million. If Goff signs a new contract, and I think that he'll probably get, like, if he were to sign a 2-year extension next year, it would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 for $130 million. Well, right around $45 million a year. Probably give him about 75% guaranteed of that number. I did if you go back and look, in the playlist, there is a video called MVP Jared Goff, and there's another one called Pay the Man, the $50 million arm. If you watch those videos, I break everything down, the numbers, what it would mean if he signed a 2-year contract, and what it means to the salary cap, because it only moves the needle from, 13% to like 14% over the value of the cap. So it really doesn't do anything from a percentage, and percentages are what I got a call coming in. So I'll be on hold for just a minute and I'll be right back. All right, so we got Kevin on the line. Kevin, welcome back. Thanks for calling in again. How you doing tonight?
Man, I'm good. Man. I was just watching this Monday night games going back and forth. And then I happened to see that you were online. I just was listening to you talk about Jared Goff's contract. And, like, you really think that $45 million is what he would get?
So, yeah, and if you go back and I would, ask you to try to watch that video if you have some time, because I really break it all down. When you look at new quarterback contracts, you're going to look at the last 5 or so that were signed. I mean, Daniel Jones just signed a $40 million contract. Derek Carr signed like a $42.5 million contract per year.
Do you think, I mean, I look at it like, is that just bad general managers, hoping and prayer kind of thing, and they're reaching and they're overpaying for these guys that are not worth that kind of money? I mean, I kind of look at it like, I look at that as bad on the GMs, I mean, I would never pay that kind of money for Daniel Jones, $45 million a year. I think with Goff, I mean, that would hurt our team. I feel like I think I would like to see Brad, offer him something like 3 years, $90 million or $80 million. I mean, the way the guys have been playing this last 4 or 5 games, it's like he's kind of showing his cards a little bit, and I think it would be a bad move. I think it's I know what you're saying, like other quarterbacks and what they're getting paid around the league. However, I look at that as like, that's just bad general managers making bad decisions and reaching for these guys and overpaying them and hoping that they, it's like putting lipstick on a pig kind of thing.
So
I could be wrong. I just wanted to chime in.
Yeah. If you look back at his last contract, was 4 years, $134 million. And that was an average of $33.5 million per season. He will never make less than that in the NFL, ever. So if you go 3 for 90, that's $30 million. So that's why 3 for 130 at 45 is about the average of the top 5, top 5 quarterback salaries in his caliber. I didn't even factor in Patrick Mahomes and those, big, huge contracts. The thing is, how it works, man. These contracts get reset every year. But while I got you on, let me just put his. So right now, according to Spotrac.com, Jared Goff's market value is no less than $38.8 million a year. So call it 40. Call it 40. Right. And he's not going to make less than Daniel Jones. I mean, he's got a top 5 offense. He's got top 5 stats in the league, and that's all going to come into account when they do this next contract. And I know people are freaking out. People are freaking out by it. They see this big number and it's like, that's going to kill our team. We can't, get any players. And
I agree with you on a lot of things. And it's like, when you were talking about, maybe willing and dealing Goff, it's basically a gamble, right? Yeah. And then getting that extra pick in the draft. We get 2 first-round picks. you know, I'm a firm believer, you know, it all happens in the trenches, right? I mean, you see what without an offensive line, we're no good.
Yeah.
If we have an offensive line, I mean, you can run up and down the field, obviously. But, yeah, I mean, I would not be upset if if Brad and Dan, you know, gambled on Hendon Hooker. You know, I mean, I guess we'll see. But, I mean, I almost feel like Teddy Bridgewater is a better option sometimes, you know, as of the last 4 or 5 games of what I've seen. You know, we just can't keep shooting ourselves in the foot how we've been doing.
Yeah, and you know what really worries me too is, okay, look, if Ben Johnson leaves next season, then it's almost like, all right, does it even matter if Jared Goff's here? Because you're going to be starting over with a new offensive coordinator. You're going and maybe it's somebody within and they keep the same system, and then it's not a big deal. But if they're going to have to start with a new system, then it's time to move on from Goff, because then you have to learn a new system anyway. You might as well have a new quarterback.
Correct. Yeah, I get that. And, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how the offseason unfolds. Yeah. You know, are we going to keep Aaron Glenn? Is Ben Johnson actually going to be a candidate for a head coaching position? You know, I guess the last 4 games is really going to determine his future. I mean, if we come out here and lay another egg.
I think he has a shot. I really do. I just hope that he decides to stay, you know?
Yeah, I agree. You know, you hate to keep getting new guys in and out all the time, right? I mean, that's not good for your program either. But no, I just want to call in, man. I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in with the Goff stuff, you know what I mean, with the contract talks. And, you know, I mean, I wouldn't be upset if they dealt him. We got some extra picks and saved all that money. I mean, we could pay Hendon Hooker. I mean, what is it, like $1.5 million a year, and then we could just load up on everything else. I mean, that's an option. So, this is my 2 cents. I'll get off the phone, man. I appreciate you again, man.
All right,
keep
man.
in touch.
We'll talk next time. Take care.
All right. Yep. Bye
bye. Well, I mean, there's one caller that says he's on the fence with it. I mean, he wouldn't be upset about it. Moving on from Jared Goff, saving the money. But then I want to bring you down a rabbit hole for just a second. You guys know me as a stat nerd to a degree, right? I mean, I love looking at stats and analytics. And here's what I'm going to throw at you. I went and looked at the last 10 years worth of first round draft picks, quarterbacks. And there's only 2 that have done anything in the league. And only 2 that even would compare to what Jared Goff has done in the league. And that is from a wins perspective, stats perspective, playoffs, Super Bowl appearances, Super Bowl wins. And the only player that's been better than him is Mahomes. And the only other player that else compares to him is Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. Those are the only ones. And what I went down this rabbit hole on looking at first round rookie draft picks and what they do. Now, the stats don't lie. On average, it takes a rookie quarterback first rounder 2.5 seasons to make it to the playoffs. 2.5. So I'm just going to forewarn everybody that if we take a first round draft pick next season and start them, if that does happen, we will not be in the postseason for probably another 2 or 3 seasons. And the only way that curve gets a little bit shorter is if we're able to continue with the solid run game and Laporta still plays lights out with a new quarterback. That's the only way. And if our defense becomes a top 10 defense year in and year out, that's what we're going to need. We will no longer have this, high, powerful offense. At least we don't know yet. We have to see it, right? But based on the numbers, based on the stats, they have losing records and they don't make the playoffs for 2.5 seasons. Now, I'm not saying that, that would happen in Detroit. But again, based on the statistical analysis, that's what's going to happen. I mean, you can go look around the league, and tell me what rookie quarterback, the only one this season that's actually having a decent season is CJ Stroud, and he has a losing record, doesn't he? Bryce Young, what is he, 1-12? Who else came out this year? Will Levis? Is he even playing right now? So the top quarterbacks taken in this league are probably not going to make the playoffs. Stats don't lie. They don't. They'd have to squeak in, I mean, the Texans have an opportunity to still squeak in, but you're barely squeaking in. Mag7 Life says that's not true. Please tell me what's not true and prove it wrong right now. Please do it, because the stats are out there and they're all in videos on my channel. The receipts are there, buddy. Ken Button says throw a Brock Purdy into the mix of a good offensive and defensive line and he'll look pretty. I mean, that's exactly the point. I mean, Brock Purdy walked into a loaded team, both sides, and then they added even more options to it. Now they're also mortgaged to the hilt. The 49ers walked into this year with 3 or 4 draft picks. And because a lot of their coaches elevated to the next level of coaching, they ended up getting some crazy like 6 third-round compensatory picks, or it was a mix of picks. They had a ton of picks. And that's the only benefit to AG taking a head coaching job and moving on from the Detroit Lions, is that the Lions would get 2 third-round picks for 2 seasons. So, end of the 3rd round, they would get 2 compensatory picks, 3rd round for 2 seasons. So I hope he does enough to save it and save that opportunity, because I think everybody's had enough, of AG, and I'd rather have the picks. I really would. All right, King SJ says keep Goff and move on, and moving on from Goff are both going to have their pros and cons. 100% right. You're either going to, move on and find someone that's going to, be the savior of the team, or you're going to wind things back a couple of years. And I just don't see the Lions wanting to wind back all of their efforts. They are in win now mode next year. I called it from 21. I said 2024 was going to be the year that we were really going to break out and do something nice. And they surprised me. They jumped out a half a season ahead. They started winning a lot of ball games early this season. They got to push hard. Look, we're going to make the playoffs. I mean, it would have to be a total, collapse of a giant magnitude this season. And if that happened, I'm sorry, but heads are going to roll. And I don't think it's going to stop at AG. I think that Dan Campbell might have some trouble. I don't know. At the same time, I think Sheila's going to stick it out for his 6-year contract. I think that, when they looked at this, and this is just my speculation, but when they signed, Brad Holmes to, I think it was a 5-year, and Campbell to a 6-year contract, they sold Sheila on the fact that it was going to take at least 4 seasons to get the team that they wanted, to get their financials in shape, to get the coaches they wanted, to implement the schemes that they wanted to implement. And by year 4, season 4, they were going to start, winning the crown, going deep in the playoffs, potentially winning a Super Bowl by year 5. And that would be the plan. And if it didn't happen, they're probably out the door. I'll tell you right now, if Brad Holmes hits on the draft again next year, he's probably going to get another 5-year extension. And I would hope that he does, because the financial team that they have in that office right now and what they've been doing with these contracts and how they've been saving all of this money, I don't think it gets any better. All right, PFD Firestopper says, clearly the front office has concerns. That's why contract talks with Goff have currently halted. I appreciate you, saying that. The thing is, when it comes to doing contracts mid-season, 99% of teams would never do that. Trade deadline is about it. If you make a deal for somebody at the trade deadline, you're going to have to do something with their contract typically, unless they're coming in with a big contract. But you don't do the contract extension mid-season. It clouds, it muddies the water, it clouds everything for the player. There's too much focus on contracts, taken away from the game. So, in my opinion, it's just bad business to put your player in that type of position, and he'll get extended in the offseason. If the Lions are going to do it, they're going to do it in the offseason, guaranteed. They're not going to wait till the beginning of next year. It'll be done before May. John Goodwin says, I'm letting JG and Hooker battling it out in the spring drills and training camp. Let the best man win. I wouldn't put it past Dan Campbell that's on the table. I wouldn't put it past them. All right, I got another call coming in. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm going to turn you up just a little bit. All right, we got a Detroit Lion fan, I believe, on the line. I couldn't catch his name, but go ahead and introduce yourself, and let's chat for a minute. What do you got to say about the Lions?
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Martez, by the way. I follow you for a while, man, and as well as Derek.
No, nice.
You guys are two of the best to do it. I appreciate you, man, for that.
I appreciate the compliment.
But no, yeah, I was thinking about what you said. In terms of like Jared Goff, and I'm not a truther, or I'm not a hater, but like at the end of the day, man, like the turnovers, man, they have to stop. And it's like, we need a quarterback a little more mobile. He doesn't have to be like a running quarterback, but just extend plays. So this arm, he has adequate arm strength, but like he can't. We have Jameson Williams. He needs to be able to stretch the field. Because he's good intermediate, but I mean, like other than that, and he makes clutch throws from time to time. But like other than that, man, we need somebody. If we're gonna re-sign him, then like I would say maybe a year. But like, why not give Hooker a shot? Because if he can at least keep the boat afloat, then man, we can really build around him with that 80+ million that we could get. So I get your stats about some of the other quarterbacks, but what about Brock Purdy? I mean, he's a young guy. They bring him in. Jalen Hurts. I mean, I think he was like year 2 or 3. He had success. You've had 30 quarterbacks that have had success that get into the playoffs. You look at Joe Burrow. I know it's an anomaly, but when I think about it, I don't think that we should attach our card to Jared Goff to the point of, okay, can we get somebody that at least do a little bit of what he does for a lot cheaper? I mean, that's just good business. So I talk to people all the time, and they just never even consider, okay, well, no, we get Goff's a quarterback, and that's that. Well, okay, we don't know what this kid can do. They say he can't do this, he can't do that. He played in a kind of tricky system at Tennessee. Well, you don't know what he's going to do until he gets in there, till he gets coached up. I'm not saying this year, but like in the off season, if he's competing, then man, why not? Because we can really save some capital there and put that different places. So yeah, that's all I really want to say. Guys, just don't close the door on Hooker. You don't know what you have until you try.
I love Hooker. I'm a huge Hooker supporter. Pause. I don't mean that literally. I'm a big, Hendon Hooker supporter. I wanted him in Detroit. I was all about him in the spring. I just and I just found the thing that I wrote back in the spring too. And if you want, I'll read it when you get off the air. But I hear you, man. I mean, you make good points. You never know what you have until you see it. And we'll see Hooker this spring and throughout the summer. And I'm sure he's going to be great. Whether or not he's ready to lead this team, they're going to have to duke it out. And Dan Campbell's going to have to make that decision. But when I look at it from the standpoint that you've already got Goff under contract, highly doubtful that he's going to ever hold out. They could go one more season. And if things don't get off to a great start, you do have Hendon Hooker to slide right in. And I'm not saying that Jared Goff is the best quarterback in the NFL, because he's not, but he fits this team somehow. I mean, it's what he's been able to do with St. Brown and Sam Laporta right off the get. And the success that he's had in leading this team in such a short amount of time, and the young players. I mean, young players. We haven't had. We had the two youngest, teams back-to-back years in 21 and 22 until we started bringing in, some old guys. So to be able to do that with young players and have the success that we've had in such a quick turnaround, something's got to be given back to Jared Goff. And I hear you on the turnovers too. But he's actually tied right now for fifth lowest in the league with 10 interceptions. Yeah. And he's tied with like 5 of, the top quarterbacks in the league. So he's not way out in left field with the interceptions, It's not like he has 20 of them right now.
Yeah, you got a point, but nevertheless, man, thanks for taking my call, man. I'll be continuously looking forward to your content, and God bless you, man.
Hey, you too, Marquez. I appreciate you, man, and thanks for taking off your earpiece. I could hear you now.
Yes, sir.
All right, brother. Take care. See ya.
All right.
So, I mean, I love exactly what he just said. He's not a truther. He's not, in the boat with Goff or Hendon. It's just who's going to be the best for the team. Let him duke it out. Let's see what we have in Hooker. And I'm all there too. I am. I just think right now, with what we know we have with Jared Goff and how it's working, it's just hard to move on. So I want to read this thing that, since we're talking about quarterbacks, here's the notes from the episode. And since 2017, Patrick Mahomes, he didn't go to the playoffs till his second season, drafted in 2017, didn't make the playoffs until 2018, 2 seasons. And we don't need to discuss, his meteoric rise. I mean, we all know what that is. But he is the only quarterback since 2017 drafted in round 1 that has done anything of any magnitude. Mitchell Trubisky, he made the playoffs his second season, drafted in 2017. What's he doing right now? Nothing. I mean, I think he's playing, for the Pittsburgh Steelers now? But he made the wild card playoffs in 2018 with the Bears and lost. Made the wild card again in 2020 and lost. Overall record in the playoffs, 0-2. Took 2 seasons to develop and never started again in the playoffs. Deshaun Watson, it took him 2 seasons, drafted in 2017. Made the wild card in 2018 season and lost. Went back to the wild card in 2019 and won. Lost the divisional round. Overall record, 1-3 in the playoffs, and took 2 seasons to develop and has been a liability ever since with one of the largest contracts in the NFL. 2018, Lamar Jackson, first season he made the playoffs. So drafted in 2018, made the wild card in 2018 and lost. AFC division in 2019 and lost. In the wild card in 2020 and finally won, and then lost in the divisional game. He is 1-3 in playoff games. Josh Allen, took him 2 seasons, drafted in 2018, made the wild card in 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. He won 3 wild cards and 1 divisional round, overall 4-4 in the playoffs. Took 2 seasons to develop. Baker Mayfield, took him 3 seasons, drafted in 2018, made the wild card in 2020, and won and lost the divisional game. Took 3 seasons to develop and now a backup quarterback. This was written before he became the Bucs starter. Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold, drafted in 2018, completely washed out of the league. 2019, Kyler Murray, took him 4 seasons, made the wild card in 2022 and lost. Took 4 seasons to develop. Daniel Jones, who we're watching tonight, the $40 million man, took him 4 seasons to make the playoffs. He made the playoffs last season and got a huge contract for it. So he made the wild card in 2022 and won. Lost the divisional game, and I think the rest is history. Dwayne Haskins, drafted in 2019, washed out of the league. 2020, Joe Burrow, took 2 seasons. Drafted in 2020, made the playoffs his second season. Again, he is the only other rarity since Mahomes that has done amazingly well. And I don't think we really need to recap all of that. I mean, other than you got him, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson, he hasn't done squat. That's the whole reason why I never could have thought of bringing Lamar to Detroit for such a huge contract. And I hope some of you that don't want Jared Goff and you think that, having a different quarterback would make sense, like a Lamar Jackson or, anyone, a Trevor Lawrence or any of these other guys, Justin Herbert. Now, Justin Herbert, I wouldn't mind having, but paying that kind of money and trading what you have now and having to start all over again. Sometimes these players don't fit the scheme that you're running. And Lamar, you'd have to retool everything. This is not even close to the same offense that they're running over at the Ravens. So Tua Tagovailoa, drafted 2020, never made the playoffs. Jordan Love, drafted 2020, just now started playing in the league this year. Justin Herbert, second season, drafted in 2020, made the wild card in 22 and lost. Overall record 0-1. 2021, Trevor Lawrence took 2 seasons to make the wild card in 2022, lost the divisional game. Overall record 1-1, took 2 seasons to develop. Then you got Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, and Justin Fields. Never made the playoffs. Kenny Pickett, 2022, never made the playoffs. So these are all the first round draft picks, quarterback draft picks in 2017. And out of all of them, only one made the playoffs in their first season, and that was Lamar Jackson, and he lost. So that's the proof. That's the proof. It doesn't make sense to draft a rookie and think that you're going to do anything with him. It's going to take time. It's just the way that it is. If you get a Patrick Mahomes or a Joe Burrow or the super lucky Purdy, come on. The guy was drafted into an incredible team, right? And then somehow got the opportunity to play, albeit I think it was through injury, right? Got the opportunity and played lights out. It's just a wild story. So you're talking about 3 really wild stories since 2017. And how many players? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So about 20 quarterbacks in 6 seasons, 6 drafts, and 3 of them have been decent. So sorry to bore you with all the numbers, but I sometimes go to battle with people about draft picks and quarterbacks in the first round, or taking a different quarterback and paying them the same kind of money, and sometimes it just doesn't make a difference. It looks great on the surface, but underneath it all, you're just rinsing and repeating the same thing that you were just doing, and you might have been better off keeping what you had. I'm not saying that Jared Goff is the end all be all in Detroit and he should be there 10 years. I'm not saying that. I just think that we're too easily, swayed to give up. And I get it. Lions fans are upset. I've been there. I've been going to games for 22 years as a loyal member with my father and with my family forever. 50 plus years, 60 years, whatever it was, of going to Detroit Lions games. It's in my blood, it's just something I've been doing forever since I was like 4 years old. I get it. Been there, done that. I wouldn't be doing this right now if, I didn't see the other side of this and see where, Lions fans are going to end up soon with the way that this regime is really changed the culture, the identity, of this team and this organization, and where we're heading in the future. We're going to be there. And I think we're going to be relevant for a while. All right, I'm going to wind it back. Let's see, there's quite a few chat messages in here. Let me give you guys an update on the game in case you guys aren't watching it. Once it stops after the replay there. So it's 7-7. And there's 19 seconds left in the second quarter. It looks like Green Bay has the ball. They're reviewing the play, and it's 7-7 in the other game, Titans and Dolphins on ESPN. So good game. It looks like Green Bay, man, they're in scoring position or field goal position is what it looks like. It didn't look like a catch. All right, let me move down here. Lord McQuaig says we are number 27 on the first round as well as of December 10th. Detroit Lions draft picks 2024, first, second, third, and from Minnesota, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Yep, we got a full boat of picks. We have an extra third, and we're drafting at the end of round one. If you guys want to talk draft for a minute, here's what I would love to see Brad Holmes do. The draft is going to be in Detroit, right? You might as well make it extremely fun for the Lions fans, because picking at the end of the first round ain't fun. They're not as fun as it could be. If it were me, and this is just if it were me, I would never want to pick in the 6th and 7th round. I get it. They're cheap contracts. Everybody needs, some practice squad players or whatever. But I would trade like all of my 5th, 6th, and 7th round options for multiple seasons to pick in, the 2nd and 3rd round as opposed to the 5th, 6th, and 7th. That's just me. I mean, I would rather load my team up with better guys, better players, higher value players, and have the extra picks that you could package to then move up even further. But I think next year is an all-in year for this team. I really do. Between the draft, the offseason, and future draft capital, this team should never be picking at the top of the draft ever again. I mean, like Lauren says, we're picking in the bottom of the first. That's probably where we're going to hang for a while, is the bottom of the first. So at some point, you're going to have to be ready to move up early in the first, especially if you do want a quarterback. Because if you don't get a quarterback in the top 10, you still may not have an opportunity to have that quarterback of the future. And that's the rest of the stats and the analysis that I did is quarterbacks that were taken after the first round never panned out, really. Very few. Tom Brady, again, an anomaly. And I don't have that information in front of me, so I can't go over all of it right now. But let's just say I did it, and I read it all. I wrote it all, and not many players after the first round ever did anything. I mean, they definitely didn't do anything better than what the first rounders did, other than a Tom Brady. So there's a bit of luck in this, just a little bit. All right, Brent says, I believe it's all about 2024. It's the way Brad Holmes has been doing things. Yeah. I mean, when you really think about it, 4 drafts, if you average 6 players per draft, that's 24 players. That gives you a full roster on both sides of the ball. John Goodwin says, I'm all for letting JG and Hooker battling it out in the spring drills and training camp. Let the best man win. I think I already read that one. I apologize. Jeremiah Jr. says, Sheila being the first Ford family member to actually know what the hell she's doing instead of running the team into the ground. Yeah. Huge what she's been able to accomplish. All right. Packers just went up 10-7, and the second quarter is going to come to an end. There's about 13 seconds left. Brent says, I heard we should have about $100 million next year. If I'm off, it's not by much. Yeah. Right now we're sitting at about 70. So the only way we could go up even further is if the cap goes up, if the NFL raises it, quite a bit. But yeah, we're sitting at about 70. Bruce Martin also says, well, it depends on their defense. If they can't stop anybody, how do you expect to make the playoffs? That's a great point. And then if you go back and look at a lot of the, Super Bowl contenders and the ones that have gone to the Super Bowl over the last 20 years, there's this whole chart online somewhere. I've got it. You can look at every offense and defensive ranking. And if you look at like the last 10 years, the trend has been offense versus defense. So more top offense versus a top defense. Like when I grew up, watching like the Bucs defense, I mean, that with Warren Sapp, an amazing defense, right? The Steelers defense, Chicago's defense, watching those teams play and how nasty they were, that's what you strived for as a team, is you wanted a nasty defense, and you just needed an offense that could score a few points, capitalize on all the turnovers. And I see what Brad Holmes is doing with the last couple of drafts. He's gearing up to make this an offensive team, because again, what the stats show is you can win a Super Bowl with a number 3 offense and a number 15 defense. Doesn't happen frequently, but it can be done. Now it's more like a number, 3 and a number 10, or a number, 2 and a number 12, or a number 1 and a number 15. It's all been done. Someday I'll share it. I'll put it up in a video or something, and we'll go through it. It's just interesting because you can see exactly what Brad Holmes is trying to do. He's trying to gear us up to be an offensive powerhouse, because those are the teams that are winning Super Bowls. Lone Wolf says, what is John Fox's job on this team? Isn't he supposed to be some defensive genius? Yeah, but I think he's just in an administration role. I can't really remember the exact title. I can look it up real quick. He's a senior defensive assistant in 2023. And I thought he was an administrative hire. So I'm not even sure what he's doing. But there you go. Maybe we put John Fox in as the defensive coordinator, huh? He's been in the NFL for 31 seasons as a coach. That's insane. Ed W says, AG leaving and us getting compensatory picks is great. Holmes can use them to move up in the draft. See, there you go. And that's the nice thing about what the NFL did too, is you used to not be able to trade your compensatory picks, and you can now. Future prospects. Says Zach Wilson. He doesn't like the Jets and refuses to play. Maybe we trade for Zach Wilson. If he doesn't want to play, I don't know if he fits what we need in Detroit. Peter Braley says the problem with Goff right now is his reluctance to throw to someone other than St. Brown and Laporta. Jamo and Donovan Peoples-Jones need to start from now on. Yesterday, Jamo hit, I think, 8 receivers with a pass, and nobody had more than 3 catches on the day because there were so many drops. I think Brown had 3 drops. Laporta had a drop. Gibbs had a drop. Goff usually spreads the ball around. There's been a few games where it's only been 2 or 3, but he usually spreads the ball around. Donovan Peoples-Jones had a nice catch yesterday. Just wasn't enough. Now, I like this idea here from Ed. Use Hooker in spots like the Saints. Perfect idea. But is it going to be too easy to, understand what we're doing as an offense if you put in Hooker and he's going to run the ball? But if you run the RPO with him and put him in for a few plays, well, then you make the defense honest, don't you? So it's almost like if you get into a tough position and your offense has become predictable and the defense, is got you pegged out. Oh, wow. Titans just threw a interception at the goal line for a touchdown to the Miami Dolphins defense. Tyreek Hill looks like he's banged up bad. Ankle, knee, something. Not good. So yeah, using Hooker in spots. I like it. If your defense is, or if your offense is too predictable and you throw Hooker in for a few plays and you get him to play a little bit more honest, run the RPO, I think that'd be a great idea. And you know what? Who's to say that we don't see something like that, next season? I doubt it would happen this season, but next season, with both of them on the squad. Ken says, I like Goff in a Disney-like scenario. He's more than sufficient to win a Super Bowl. I did a comparison to his Super Bowl season and last season, and this may blow you guys away, but if you go and look at his stats, 1 for 1, almost identical. Almost the same amount of yards thrown, interception to TD ratio, percentage, it was better. Completion percentage was better. Yards per completion was better. But I mean, like very close. We're talking less than 5-10% different on some of the metrics. So he was playing at a Super Bowl clip last year. And what I mean by that is if those stats in 2018 got him into the Super Bowl, he was playing at an elite level. And he was playing at an elite level last season. He was playing at an elite level this season. Had a few bad games. I hate that I even called the Lions to go 12-5 in August, because that could be our reality. But the reality is it's enough to win the division. It's enough to win the 3 seed. And quite honestly, we still have a shot at the 1 seed. It would be a crazy scenario, but we still have a mathematical shot at the 1 seed. I went through it last night. What we really need is New York to win tonight. Rick says, I sometimes wonder whether Lions fans are hurting the team's overall confidence. I mean, after this loss, it seems like the Lions faithful are relentlessly ridiculing the team. That's a good point, Rick. I would say that if I was a Detroit Lion player, I probably wouldn't read much social media or watch much news. But in the world we live in, they see it. I doubt that they're chiming in to watch podcasts, or shows like mine, but you never know. I mean, I don't know who's in unless you put something in the chat. I have no idea who's watching. But that's why, there's some games, or some shows, some videos, it's, we're analytical, we're critical. We're just trying to tell you the truth, be honest and transparent about what's going on with the team. Get rid of this Kool-Aid drinking. It's like, this is it. This is what's happening. Let's talk about it. Let's not be shy about it. We're missing some pieces. That's all it's about. So I'm going to move down here in the chat. I have to skip a few. Cammy Boy says, I think J-Mo may have hit on Goff's fiance. The only reason he hates that kid so much. That's funny, man. Way to lighten up the mood. Jim Curry. Goff threw a pretty nice deep ball in week 17 against the Packers. He's thrown a lot of great balls. He really has. I mean, Goff can still throw the ball. There's nothing wrong with his arm. Ken says, Will, do you really think the Lions are going to win another game this year? Oh, yeah, I do. They have to. They have to win at least one more. Have to. If they win one more, they own the North. So they have to get to 10 wins. Look, we're going up against the Vikings, who just pulled Dobbs. And now their quarterback is Mullins or something like that. So those both should be wins. And even if Dobbs is in there, they should be wins. I mean, Minnesota's got a fairly decent defense, but their offense, Jefferson's hurt, and I heard he has a pretty bad chest injury. I'm not sure on his, prognosis for playing this weekend, this upcoming weekend. But, things are starting to stack in our favor a little bit, for the Vikings games. Cowboys game, I don't think they're going to be resting players, so I don't know if there's any way that we're going to win that game. We have always played the Cowboys pretty tough in the past. If I remember correctly, we played the Cowboys, was it 2 seasons ago? I think we lost like 24-6, or was that last season? But we've always played the Cowboys pretty good. Cody Utes says, if we get hot again like last year, we'll be fine. It's all it takes, man, is a spark. And I'll go back to what I was saying in the beginning. Actually, I missed some of these comments. Let me read some of these comments because we're going on 2 hours here. So these are comments that were in some of my video feeds. I'm not going to read, who sent them. But this is the whole reason why I started this show tonight, to kind of talk about the state of the Lions, have a discussion about it, be real about it. air it out, vent your frustrations, whatever you want to do. So number one, that was hard to watch live, talking about the game yesterday. St. Brown dropped passes, Goff fumbled, Ben Johnson lost anything creative with play calling. There was 0 passes deep except one where JMO loses the ball in the air. I swear this is a different team than what it was beginning of the season. And my answer to that would be correct. This is a different team. Something changed after the Ravens game, and they haven't got it back yet. Number 2, both of our coordinators are getting schooled. The Lions have been figured out. I think we have greater problems with the DC, but the OC is losing quite a bit of his luster. And I really don't care what Dan Campbell says in his pressers, but the fact is they've been playing bad football for like 8 weeks. This is not a one-time thing. It's a trend. It's going to take more than motivational speeches and platitudes to get this team in the right direction. I'll agree again. Dan Campbell says a lot of the same things in his press conferences. We have to own it. We have to get better. We've got to figure it out, or whatever he says, man. It's just coach speak. The thing I like about Dan is he seems like he's pretty transparent. All right, number 3, there were some blown offensive calls. Dan needs to impart more authority into the play calling. Hutch will get smarter and have the players around him that he can trust, but it may take a few seasons. Ultimately, it is still about execution. DC will turn up the heat. This may be a turning point. We will see how they respond. You forgot to take a look at Goff's poor passing in the Chicago air. Even when he did connect, a wobbling sort of spiral will be thrown off more in the wind than a tight spiral. Use Goff for now until the offensive line is healthy with quality backups, and turn Hooker loose when he knows the offense inside and out, and more importantly, how to read coverage. I guess on this one, yeah, it's all about execution. Nobody executed very well yesterday. There was a lot of problems on both sides of the ball. I'm not so sure about Goff throwing in the air. There's 13-mile-an-hour winds all day yesterday, plus 20-mile-an-hour gusts. It's not easy to throw in. The thing about Hendon Hooker, I think I've talked about it all night. He's not playing this year unless we suffer 2 injuries. Number 4, Ben is limited with what he can do because Goff is very limited. With the new offensive coordinator next year, why limit him with Goff? I think Goff can do everything but be a dual threat. And I believe that. There's some throws, like he's not a sidearm thrower, but he can hit every throw. I don't think Goff is very limited. He's not going to beat you with speed. He's going to beat you with his brain. Number 5, Broncos are going to come to Ford Field and put Goff out of commission, just like they have been against other quarterbacks they've been playing against. Bye-bye season. Well, if that's the case, let's just hope we beat the Vikings twice and the Packers lose tonight. This was an ask. Would you trade the Lions defensive coordinator and defensive line for the Bears defensive coordinator and defensive line? I don't want to hear how great Hutch is. He ain't it, by the way. There's finally some people that are realizing some of the things that I've said that have remained true. And people thought that I was just a Hutchinson hater. I'm not. I love everybody on the Detroit Lions, as a fan. Like, I love the team. This is not U of M anymore. It's the NFL. So college is gone. You are now a pro. You have to play up to the pro level. It's like walking from, a freshman hall to a senior hall. You now have to be different. He walked into a next phase of his life, and that's to become an NFL pro athlete and be a defensive end that was picked number 2 overall. And he should play that way. He should earn it, right? He hasn't earned it. He hasn't shown us that he can stay consistent. He even said it himself today. And for some of you that are just coming in, Hutchinson apparently called his own play on the field. And it was confirmed by Dan Campbell in the press conference today. And Hutchinson, talked about it in the press conference or in the post-game media availability that AG put the call in and Hutch called something different, or it was just a change to AG's call. And I wasn't real clear on that, but it sounds like he called his own play. And Dan Campbell, again, at the press conference, acknowledged it, that was the reason why Fields ran for the touchdown. It was on Hutchinson's edge. Hutch was way out of alignment. He was surfing down the line, and Fields just went the other way for an easy touchdown. So it's those types of things that can happen that have been happening ever since he became a rookie in the NFL. And those were the biggest things that everybody wanted to see that Hutch would clean up and take the biggest step forward on that he hasn't. So I hear your sentiment here. I don't know who sent this in. I'm not going to say their names anyway, but I believe Hutch is a good player. I think that he has the ability to be better than what he is now. I don't think he's elite. I don't think he's going to become elite. I think he can have elite stats, but not be an elite player, if that makes sense. And I think he'll have elite stats when Brad Holmes gives him an elite defensive tackle next to him and another defensive end on the other side. Then anybody can get elite stats when the offense has to be responsible for all 11 people or all 11 players and not just 9 or 10 or 8. Number 7, they weren't that good to begin with, as we were deceived by early wins against Patsies. It's not Detroit versus everybody. It's Detroit versus its fan base. That's a rough one, man. I mean, the Detroit fan base is on eggshells. We've wanted to win for such a long time. And when you play as well as we've played and been in so many games and your heart just kind of gets ripped out at the end, you kind of lose that fuse, right? You don't have a fuse anymore. So, man, that was bad. Packers just totally launched at Daniel Jones, and they didn't throw a flag. Or not Jones, DeVito or whatever. Shoulder to helmet contact, and he launched. It was going to be helmet to helmet. That's terrible. But anyway, like I was saying, we don't have a fuse. A lot of us don't. So, you get that SOL mentality that just kind of creeps up way too quick. And, after a few days in a win, what happens? The win kind of covers the poop, right? It covers the egg on your face. The win cures all. And everything's great for 6 days or maybe 2-3 wins in a row. And then we have one loss and everybody melts down. But I think that some people melt down for a good reason. And that's because some of these losses are completely asinine. Shouldn't happen. And it just seems like the coaching staff isn't doing anything to change it. This is a good one by Brett. Right now it's Detroit Lions versus Detroit Lions. It is. They're beating themselves. They really are. Who do I consider elite from a defensive end perspective? Well, Myles Garrett is, for one. Chase Young has been elite this year. Montez Sweat has been pretty elite. But if you really want to look here, I'm going to look up the top defensive end stats real quick. But the reason why I say Myles Garrett is actually, let me look at something else. I'm going to look at the pass rush win rate right now, because this is why I always refer back to this. Hutchinson's not even in the top 20 for any of the stats. I always hear that Hutch is double teamed. He's not. I hear he's triple teamed. He's not. And he's not even ranked in the top 20 of defensive ends in the league that are doubled, tripled, or winning their pass rush win rates. So edge rushers right now, Micah Parsons is number 1. Myles Garrett's number 2, Brian Burns number 3, Bradley Chubb number 4, Will Anderson 5, Clowney 6, Reddick 7, Young 8, TJ Watt 9, Ebukam 10, Key 11, Huff 12, Hendrickson 13, Boye Mafe 14, Jonathan Greenard 15, Leonard Floyd 17 or 16, Max Crosby 17, Josh Sweat 18, Nick Bosa 19, and Alex Highsmith 20. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You want to say that Hutchinson's double teamed all the time, and that's why he's not getting home. Well, the 20th ranked defensive edge rusher on this list is double teamed 17% of the time. Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons are double teamed 32 and 33% of the time. So according to this list, even Chase Young is double teamed 12% of the time. If Hutchinson was double teamed more than any of these guys, he would be on this list. Pass rush win rate, the lowest rate is 19%. So Hutchinson doesn't even have a 19% win rate. And what that means is every snap that he takes in a true passing set, he's not winning even 19% of them. So not even 1 in 5. That's elite. He's not elite. He's not even close. He's got a ways to go. But like I said, he will be a great ball player. He's just not going to be the elite defensive end that we're looking for, in my opinion. And that's based on the stats that I didn't compile. I think that's all through ESPN. And don't jump off sides. Get the QB and center. Snap and hold on to the ball equals wins most weeks. Yeah, it does. Stupid bonehead moves. Hutchinson doesn't make a lot of mistakes, when it comes to pre-snap penalties and that. He's really good on that. He just makes the mistakes after the snap, getting too deep on the quarterback, getting sucked inside the center of the offense as opposed to staying on his edge, playing contain, staying lateral, staying equal. He gets sucked in. And if you go back and look at the Fields touchdown from yesterday, you'll see what I'm talking about. He got sucked in he was on the left side of the defense. He was on the right side of the defense. And Fields just walked into the end zone. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know why he did that. I want to see Hutch have some discipline, play in a more disciplined role. He doesn't need to get pressure every play. He really doesn't. He doesn't need to rush the quarterback every single play. I would much rather him play contain and bottle up the running back. Make sure that the quarterback can't get outside of his edge and his gap. Same thing on the other side. Start sending the DBs and the linebackers. I've had enough of this defensive line not producing, but we keep doing the same thing over and over and over. Isn't the definition of insanity doing the same thing over and over and over and knowing it's not going to work or getting the same result? That's the definition of literally the definition of insanity. So why is AG doing the same thing over and over and getting the same damn result or worse? Blows my mind. Ken says Hutch has the worst job in the world, getting blocked by 2 and 3 people nonstop. Ken, didn't I just go over the stats here? Let me put it up on the screen. I got to prove it to you guys. Let me show you. All right. You guys see this? This is what I'm talking about. See this column over here called double team? To the right. Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, 32, 33%. All the way down in the top 20. This is edge rush win rate rankings. It calculates how many plays, your rate, and how many times you're double teamed. Hutchinson is not on this list. top 20. Now you can go through all of it. He's not listed anywhere. Aleem McNeil used to be on this list for defensive tackles. He was 9 for most of the season, and he was 18th the last time I saw him on here. But now that he's on IR, I think he's off the list. I think that's how it works. But he was double teamed 53% of the time. Why is that important? Because if he's double teamed 53% of the time, that means Hutchinson can't be double teamed more than 47%, right? If Aleem McNeil is double teamed 53%, if they're on the same, amount of snaps per game. But the point that I'm trying to make is he would be on this list. Hutchinson would be on this list if he was double teamed that many times. And was winning his reps still. Or even if he was double teamed at all. So what happened to the Packers? They just fumbled, it looks like. Which is good for us. Somehow they have the ball. 14-10 New York. Jaden Reed just took the ball for about 16 yards and a first down. All right. What else you guys want to get off your chest tonight? I've been talking for a couple hours about these Lions. I don't really have too much more to share. There's a couple more comments here. I'm a Lions fan, and I'm sorry, but the pretenders frauds, like the Vikings last year, they haven't even played good teams. When they go up against the Cowboys, the 49ers, Eagles, they will be exposed. For God's sake, Green Bay and the Bears exposed us. Aaron Glenn has to go. Ben Johnson is overrated. I'm sorry. It just needs to be said. See, this is what I heard yesterday from Lions fans all day. This type of sentiment, how they felt about their team. I'm not there yet. But one win, or one loss, and this is what happens to us. William Eaton, what did I miss, buddy? Where's yours? You can share it right now. Ken Button says, watch the tape and don't use someone else's stat list. Oh, I watch the tape, Ken. I do. I have the all 22, through the NFL premium or premier, whatever it's called, Premier Pass. And I go back and I watch a lot of the plays. You can even whittle it down right away to all of the, big plays of the game, all the series. And so I go back and watch a lot of it. And in the off season, I watch even more. I watch thousands of hours of what we call tape, but it's just recordings from online, right? It's not physical tape. So yeah, I've done it. And look, I've looked at PFF stats, and the reason why I started watching so much tape is because PFF was putting out these stat lines that said that Hutchinson was the most double teamed and had the highest pass rush win rates and the most pressures. And I'm like, there's no way. And see, what PFF did is they put chips in the shoulder pads and in the helmets and in the ball. And imagine if you and I are standing next to each other, they're going to call that a double team if someone's standing in front of us, because we're close to each other, but we're really close to that player. They're calling it a double team, but I may be blocking somebody else. So it's highly inaccurate. So you have to watch it with your eyes. You have to. I think that's the only way you can count double teams in this league. Now, a chip is not a double team. So if you get blocked by a tackle and then a running back, runs by and makes contact with you and then continues on their route, that's not a double team. It's just a chip. Yeah, Ken Aiden was single blocked on the field. CD. He actually surfed down the line a little bit. Yeah, I don't know what he did. Just took off down to the right side. Giants just fumbled the punt. It looked like it hit him right in the hands, like he wasn't even expecting it. It was, what was that? Nobody even saw the ball. Wow. I missed the play. It looks like he kicked it straight up in the air. Looks like that was done on purpose. That's funny. All right. So anyway, to end the podcast tonight, I'm going to close the phone line down. At some point, you guys got to start calling in and just voice all these things. Let's talk about it. And so let me ask you this. What do you guys think of doing a morning show? If we do like a radio style of morning show where we'll just have people calling in all morning on your way to work or whatever. If I were to do something like that, what time would work best? Like 7 a.m. Eastern, 7:30, 8, 9, noon? Probably not noon. But we're thinking about adding something like that. And then definitely in the off season, we're going to kind of turn this into, I think, a little bit more of a radio style of podcast show. I don't even know what to call it anymore. I mean, it seems like everything's a podcast. Everything's a radio show nowadays. That's 100% true right there, man. You've got to play clean football to win in this league. You do. And Dan Campbell said that again today, that they got to get back to playing clean football. And it's probably been one of my top 10 keys of every week, every game. Wow, that Reed almost had a touchdown there if he would have just turned his head around. A few more things that I'll say, and then I'm going to end the show tonight. It takes time to rebuild a team. I think I went over that at length. That they tore this team down to the studs and then continued down to the mud and started over. Less than 15% of the original staff is still on this roster from 2020's roster. And some of them weren't even starters back then. Like Tracy Walker wasn't a starter. He was just drafted, I think, that year. But it's pretty much our offensive line that is, is Dan Skipper, Taylor Decker, Frank Ragnow. I don't think Jonah Jackson, but I think it was Jonah. Could have been Jonah Jackson too. Tracy Walker. Those are the types of players that have made it since 2020's roster. Hendon Hooker's not the savior yet. He's going to need time. He barely has been in practice. Barely throwing any balls. And Goff's going to be just fine. He will be. I mean, he's gone, 22-6, since week 8 of last season or whatever it is. I mean, if you just want to look at the overall record, we're 18-12. 18-12 in the last 2 seasons. That still wouldn't even be terrible. It's still winning football. Dan Campbell is about to be, the first 500, coach that the Detroit Lions have had since Wayne Fonts that hasn't been an interim coach. And he should hopefully do that by week 16. This team is head and shoulders above all of the previous teams, over the last probably 2 decades. There's been a couple of really good teams. 2014 defense, one of the best defenses we had. A few seasons with Calvin Johnson and Matt Stafford. But head and shoulders because our contracts are right. Our cap is in line. We've got draft capital every single season, extra picks usually in every single season. We're hitting on late round picks. We're putting multiple starters in from every draft to start the season. I don't think people realize how hard it is to be a rookie and to start. Doesn't matter if you're a first round pick or a 7th round pick. It is very difficult. And the fact that we've had 5th rounders, 6th rounders, 4th rounders, 3rd rounders, I mean, every round starting year 1, game 1, or in a, very, very solid backup role year 1, game 1 is incredible. That speaks volumes to the type of teacher that Dan Campbell is, the type of coach that he is, the type of talent evaluator that Brad Holmes is, and the rest of the scouting department. So this team is head and shoulders. So don't give up on them just yet. Let's not go back to SOL. But by all means, vent your frustrations. It's okay. It's why we do this. Is Goff to be traded? Would it make sense? Like I said, I wouldn't put it past Brad Holmes to make a business decision if a team came calling. And it was the right move for the right amount of capital to elevate this team. If they really believe in Hendon Hooker that he can make the next step, if they believe in a Teddy Bridgewater that he would come back next year on a $6 million contract or something, make the move. I'm not opposed to making the team better, and that's what it's all about, and that's what they're doing. They look at making the team overall better. It's not about one player. What is this team missing? They've lost their confidence. They've lost their confidence. They've lost their swagger. They all said it in the press conference today. They've got to get it back. How are they going to get it back? Hopefully they're going to go and win one for the Gipper this weekend and beat Sean Payton, win one for Dan Campbell. This is probably the biggest game on Dan Campbell's roster this whole season. Is this one? Well, probably right next to the Chiefs. Is beating his old boss. Has Aaron Glenn lost the locker room? Is he the answer on the defense? I couldn't tell you. Lions talk with the bad guy, Jonk. It is what it is. Go Detroit Lions. That's enough said right there. It is. It is what it is. They got to put it together. They got to put it together and they got to win. So we still have 4 games left. We're entering the last quarter of the season. I appreciate y'all. If you guys are new and you're just finding this tonight, please do me the huge favor. Look below and subscribe. We'd love to have you guys join Rock Down Detroit Lions. And we're trying to push our subscription to 3,500 before Christmas. It's just a goal that we've had all year. And because of you and being the best sponsors and supporters of this channel, we've come this far, and we'd appreciate any help that you guys give us. So appreciate y'all. Go One Pride. Go Detroit Lions. Until next time, please take care of yourself. Good night.
Wants to throw it to short. He caught it. He's going to first down. Oh, the big man dives down the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful. Fields looking, pressured, hit from behind, take it down. Aiden Hutchinson got him.
No respect.
So, we look like we're ready. This is day one.